What is going on, everybody, and welcome back in. A couple weeks off, life got in the way, but man, we're back at it here on Memorial Day weekend. Chipping back into some WVU football talk. Season getting closer, and I'm kind of getting the itch to talk about some of these guys. And today's title and video, obviously, 10 guys who will be huge impact players for the Mountaineers this upcoming season. If we are doing well, if this team is going to win a conference championship in football, it will be because of these 10 guys primarily, along with others. It definitely doesn't just take 10, but I think that these 10, if we have a good year, which I'm hoping and praying, these guys will be major factors because of it. Before I dive in, obviously, hit the subscribe button, please, trying to grow the channel as we get closer to football season. Off season kind of dragging now, and chipping and putting together video ideas, ready to actually talk some football and give some takes and opinions, man. But hit that subscribe button, helps a ton. Like the video, and let's get into it without further ado, man. So the first guy on this list, no introduction to Mountaineer Nation. We all know how good he is. Jaheim White, running back. This is it, man. This is the year I truly believe in my heart. We have saw him on the glimpse of breaking out every single year since he's been with the Mountaineers. His freshman year, 842 yards, 4 touchdowns, almost an 8-yard per carry mark on 109 carries his freshman year. And remind you, obviously the years that we've saw Jaheim White, he's been splitting time with C.J. Donaldson. And really, I would go as far as to say C.J. Donaldson was kind of the lead back, right? It wasn't Jaheim White's offense unless CJ was out, hurt, something like that. CJ Donaldson was getting a bulk of the carries, I should say. So his freshman year, 8 yards per carry, shows first off how explosive he is as a runner. And that his sophomore year, this past year, 845 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5.7 yards per carry on 149 carries. So about 40 more carries. We saw the yards go down by about 2, equal yards and a couple more touchdowns. And then we know that those are his rushing stats. I need to clarify that. That is not also counting his receiving, which I think he's a really good receiving running back as well. But that leads me to this point now. He's stayed, right? All the coaching changes. Chad Scott leaves as running back coach. Jaheim White stays. And I think it's finally time that this man reaps the benefits of staying. And he knows what he's doing, right? You look at Rich Rod coming over, and we all know the offensive style that he likes to run, not only in his time when he was with the Mountaineers his first time, but we saw Jacksonville State last year. Jacksonville State last year, their running back, for people who don't really know, Trey Stewart had 1,600 yards, 25 rushing touchdowns on 278 carries last year. 278 carries is absolutely diabolical, but true workhorse back. And when Rich Rod finds his guy, he's known to just run the hell out of him. It's as simple as that. Now, I think I'm not going to say this level because I don't really think that matters to Rich Rod, but when we bring in the running back from SMU, right, another talented running back, Ty Edwards, who I keep mentioning in that running back room, a different style runner than these guys, I would have to imagine that we're not going to see Jaheim White somewhere in the 200 carry range. I would kind of project more so 180, 210. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, he is due for a huge year, man. It is time to finally see Jaheim White pop off in his third year here with the Mountaineers. Kind of the projection that I'm giving, right? I mentioned 180 to 210 carries. 210 would be the absolute most I could see, and that's really pushing it. But I would definitely say 180 compared to his 150 carries last year. Another 30 to 50 carries is not out of question, which could lead to obviously more yards, more touchdowns, and improve his draft stock as just everything. It's going to do wonders, man. I could sit here for the entire video and talk about a Jaheim White breakout and how he's going to be an NFL back. I could do a whole separate video on it. But just talking about it in this right here, I would project him. I would go on right now in May saying that he's going to be between 1,200 to 1,400 yards with 15 or more touchdowns. And that's just kind of everything compared to what I said. We know how he is as a runner. I keep comparing him to Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane. He's that type of runner. I really, really believe that. He's an NFL-style back, paired with the volume that he's about to receive from Rich Rod in this offense. Now, a lot of this is also based on this offensive line. There's a lot of roster turnovers specifically in that offensive line, both interior and at the tackle position. So a lot of it does depend on how well they can play together. You're not running anywhere without a competent O-line, but I think the style and the offense that Rich Rod runs, he will mold these guys into where they need to be come week 1 versus Robert Morris. And Jaheim White will be the person benefiting from that. And, yeah, I mean, listen, I hope as a WVU fan, right, that he gets to be a high draft pick this upcoming year. It is a weaker running back draft class compared to this past season. Judkins, Ashton Jeanty, Travion Henderson. We saw a bunch of big name guys go early in the draft. This year, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, a couple other guys. So I think if he could have a really, really good season this year, we could be looking at potentially a round 2. Early round 3 running back, which is really good now when you see where some of these, Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs is a 7th round pick, and we see him as a lead back for the Kansas City Chiefs. So as a West Virginia fan, I just hope that we see him have a spectacular season, number 1, a healthy season, and he gets to the reward from that. He gets to become a high draft pick and kind of breaks this chain that Mountaineer fans have saw from first-round picks like Tavon Austin, who was kind of before his time in the NFL. I believe that if he was a wide receiver now coming out in the draft, he'd be a top 5 to 10 pick again, but then be utilized better in the NFL. Kevin White, who couldn't escape injuries, that was another top 10 pick. You look at second-round guys skill position-wise, Geno Smith, who had all the Jets bull crap, and finally revived, and we see what kind of player he is in the NFL. And then even back to Pat White, second-round pick. Injuries where he got knocked out, things like that. And once again, similar to Tavon, kind of before his time, where a dual-style running quarterback necessarily wasn't in play when he was playing, so he kind of phased out anyway. But I think that this just lines up for Jaheim White perfectly. If he has an awesome season, gets to go to a team with good draft capital, we see what kind of runners that are in the NFL now, and I really, really think that he fits that mold. And I give all the praise in the world to Jaheim White, man, because A, he stayed. He could have left multiple times after Neil Brown left, after Chad Scott left, but he stayed. And I'm telling you, man, it's for good reason. I think even Chad Scott was maybe in his ear saying, hey, man, listen, you need to stay because, look what Rich Rod's going to do for you. So, number 1, man, Jaheim White, running back. Absolutely. Number 2 on this list, I'm going to kind of cheat this system here a little bit, but this will be players 2 and 3. Nicco, Marchiol, and Jaylen Henderson, whoever the quarterback is going to be this upcoming season, will obviously have a major impact on this season. You cannot have a successful season without good quarterback play. And what I mean by that is in college football specifically, right, you can't have a system QB where they don't elevate players around them, right? I think of like Brock Purdy earlier in his days in the NFL, where maybe there was questions of, well, he has George Kittle, he has Debo, he has this, he has this. So we don't, we'll see this upcoming year after he gets the contract extension, how good he actually is without some of these weapons. Back to college football, stay along with me here. You can't have a guy like that because the talent around you isn't NFL caliber, right? You see Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receivers from Ohio State, things like that. You also had C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, Will Howard, who's a 6th-round quarterback. Some will say, well, he's kind of a system quarterback for them. He was still really, really good, in my opinion. Chip Kelly leading that offense, things like that. So you can't have a quarterback where his play is only elevated if the surrounding players around him at running back, receiver, elevate his game, especially not at West Virginia in the Big 12. You just can't have it. The quarterback must be the guy to elevate others. We have to have a quarterback that elevates Cam Vaughn, that elevates Jaden Bray, and finally unlocks the receiver room. Elevates our running back play by being a willing runner in this Rich Rod offense, right? We know he has a quarterback that absolutely loves, or he needs a quarterback, I should say, that absolutely loves to run the football. There's designed runs in his offense that we saw at Jacksonville State. Shout out Tyler Huff, actually. Crazy story, played Jacksonville State. Friend of mine, Garrett Vollmer, played with him. So, we see the type of, he didn't have breakaway speed at Jacksonville State either, but he was that runner where put your nose down, grind out a few yards like a power running back maybe, and then still throw the ball when need be. So when you look at this quarterback battle, and it's so weird saying battle, I can't really remember the last time we've had one, especially in this sense, and it's good that we have 2 talented guys. I will start with Nicco, right? Nicco's pass game is very underrated. I mentioned in the last West Virginia video we did, there's a YouTube video that I will link somewhere in this You need to go watch it from this perspective and watch him make progressions. I think he has very good progressions in the pass game, specifically, just certain schemes in offense. He's an underrated passer. We didn't get to see much of it because of his limited amount of playing time that we've saw him so far, but he's an underrated passer. We know that he can use his legs. Now, the thing of that, and this goes for Jaylen Henderson as well, we don't know what a full sample size looks like in a season, if that makes sense. We've saw Nicco in, I believe it's 8-9 games now. He hasn't lost when he start, so things like that. But we also haven't saw a full season week after week after week. So it's hard for me to sit here and just give a ton of flowers and props. Well, he hasn't lost a game. Well, he's did this. Well, he's did that. Well, we need to see that sample size, I should say, before we make assumptions and kind of draw conclusions, I should say. But from what we have saw and what I have saw, I think in that large sample size, he would have a good touchdown to interception ratio. The way that he sees the field, reads the field, he kind of has a little Aaron Rodgers feel to him. And what I mean by that is I think he's a guy that is smart with the ball. He would throw minimal interceptions if we saw him with 200, 300 pass attempts in a season, something like that. I think he's smart, would not throw, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong about this because this will be his first time starting in a full season if he is deemed week 1 starter. With that being said, I do think that he is the odds-on favorite to start week 1, and in that case, week 1, Robert Morris, prove it. Prove it to everybody. Leave no doubt, shout out Bill Stewart, leave no doubt that you're quarterback 1 going into Ohio and then Pitt and early on in the season. Leave no doubt. Do not even give a guy like Jaylen Henderson the chance. And I say that very positively as I transition over to Jaylen Henderson. Do not give that guy a chance because he is equally as good or better. We just don't know. The thing with Jaylen Henderson, right? He starts his career at Fresno State, then goes to Texas A&M. So he already has the name value of SEC. And don't get it twisted, this isn't a guy who just leaked his way into the SEC from Fresno State and was kind of there for the ride. No. This is different. 2023 at Texas A&M, he had 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception in a loss versus 14th ranked LSU, and then 150 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air on 12 carries and 60 yards with another 2 touchdowns rushing versus Mississippi State. And I know Mississippi State is an SEC powerhouse, but if you took Mississippi State and put them in the Big 12, they would be a very competitive team. So that's kind of the way that I viewed that. But Jaylen Henderson, to me, in this quarterback room, right, he's more athletic. To me, he passes the eye test, 6'3", 220. I know Nicco's about 6'2", a little bit lighter, but who knows now? Those are kind of older testing numbers as far as height and weight. But this guy can throw the ball, man. He can push the ball down the field. I love the way that he uses the deep ball. And I also love the way that he uses his feet. I said that he kind of reminds me a little bit of Pat White. And I didn't necessarily grow up getting to see the absolute prime of Pat White. I was very young. But YouTube, things like that, I was able to kind of go back and relive things. That's kind of who he looks like, left-handed, with a very strong throwing arm too, which helps him a ton. Like I said, the key thing for both of these quarterbacks is the lack of sample size. Henderson didn't have a ton of run at A&M. Nicco hasn't had a ton of run at WVU. We need to see a full season from one or the other to really know what we have. If we see something where it's a split, and when I say split, I don't mean quarterback in and out, design plays for certain quarterbacks. I don't mean that. I mean, if we're halfway through the season and we're 500 and then we have a quarterback flip and then it's just even the rest of the way and both guys kind of have the same amount of pass attempts, rush attempts, things like that, yeah, maybe we can compare one or two and move on from there. But you would love to just see a full sample size from one of these guys in a successful season and see what we really have. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, man, let's talk one of my favorite receivers, Jaden Bray, coming over from Oklahoma State. Last season, we didn't see him a ton due to injury. Once again, similar to Jaheim White, he stays around after the coaching changes, things like that. And man, oh man, I hope that in a similar way that I just spoke about Jaheim White, we can finally see Jaden Bray break through and be an impact player because I think he is talented enough to be that. You look at Jaden Bray at 6'2", 205, explosive speed in my opinion, which leads to him being a threat in both yards after catch and a deep ball threat, especially in that third territory of the defense, taking the top off of zone coverages, things like that. I almost kind of look at him as like a Hollywood Brown for the Chiefs. Not saying that they're similar players. Obviously, Hollywood, a little bit smaller, undersized, things like that. But Jaden Bray has unique size for the speed that he also possesses. Now, Cam Vaughn comes over from Jacksonville State. He's super talented receiver. I think that he will kind of... I hate saying wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, things like that, because all these guys are on the field at the same time. But Cam Vaughn is going to be the X receiver, okay? I mean, he is going to be on the field majority of the snaps, if not all the snaps, and he's expected to produce a ton of numbers in this offense, right? This is Rich Rod's guy. He knows the system. He's making the jump from mid-major to Big 12. I'm expecting big things out of Cam Vaughn, which is why I kind of strayed away from putting him on this list, because I think in the wide receiver room, when we look at guys who need to break out and be explosive players on this team for us to be successful, it has to be Jaden Bray. And really, you can say Rodney Gallagher, you can say Preston Fox coming back, a couple other of these wide receivers that have been brought in through the portal, Jeff Weimer I'm thinking of from Idaho State. But I think it's got to be Bray to solidify himself as this wide receiver 2, and then it allows you room and flexibility in that wide receiver 3 spot for Gallagher, for Fox, for Weimer, for this, that. Jaden Bray, he was not utilized correctly at West Virginia last year, even when he was healthy. I really believe it. I don't think Neil Brown really set him up for a ton of success in the offense. And even at Oklahoma State, whether it was due to better talent above him or just he hasn't had these statistics that a player like him, I'm not going to say should have, but looks like he should have, man. He's a guy, like, you look at him on the field, you look at the way he runs routes, the way he catches the ball, everything like that. Just him as an overall player, and you're like, my goodness, man, like, what did he have last year? 800,000 yards, couple touchdowns, and then you look, and it's like 300 yards, 400 yards on 20, 30 catches, things like that. And I just think this next year, if we're going to unlock this receiver room, which I've been saying has a ton of potential, it starts with Jaden Bray. He has got to be the key to opening this up. When you look at the roles of X, Y, and Z receivers, right? Wide receiver 1, 2, 3. If you can have a good wide receiver 1 and then a solidified wide receiver 2, it opens up your offense and kind of takes some relief off of both, Rich Rod as a coordinator, Trickett, guys calling the plays. Okay, hey, we have these 2 guys that we know are solidified on the outside. We can trust in any route, any scheme, anything. We can trust these 2 guys, and we'll figure out who we want to throw in on certain plays, things like that, for that wide receiver 3. Whether it's Rodney Gallagher, who also needs to take a big jump this next upcoming season, kind of a safety blanket option. Preston Fox, more of a possession receiver type of guy. A couple other speedsters that they brought in. Cameron, I believe I'm saying it right, hopefully. Cameron Robinson from UNC. So there's some competition here for Jaden Bray. If this is something where he doesn't get things going quickly, if he's the first person to get a crack at this wide receiver 2 role, it could be moved off. He could be moved off of very quickly. But I'm a believer. I'm a Jaden Bray believer. I hope that this is the year that he breaks out. We'll see the way that he's used in Rich Rod's offense. We know that this is a run-heavy offense, but we saw with Cam Vaughn last year and the other receivers that run-heavy style opens up the play action for one-on-one coverage where teams are having to bring more bodies into the box to stop that run, where you get a little bit more one-on-one coverage. You get a little bit more room to create separation and work. And for a guy like Bray with his release package, his size, the way that he runs his routes, I think that this offense will actually fit him better than what we saw this past season with Neil Brown. Player before we flip on the defensive side of the ball, let's talk some offensive line. Tykeus Crawford, offensive tackle from Arkansas and also Charlotte to begin his career, coming over to the Mountaineers this season. I look at him to be able to anchor and replace Wyatt Mullum in this offense this upcoming season. Wyatt Mullum is a huge loss for would have just been about any team in the country. I mean, 3rd round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Congrats to Wyatt Mullum, of course. But when you look at West Virginia, right, we know how much kind of importance they put in the portal on the offensive line, both interior and tackle. Both Robbie Martin came, interior guys, Walter Youngbear. I believe it was Prince something. I'll have to throw it up on the screen. He actually transferred out at the halfway mark of the spring, whatever that was. So interior, I think Rich Rod has an idea of the three guys that he wants to work with, right? On the tackles is where we get a little bit interesting. And I would look for Tykeus Crawford to hopefully kind of take over as we get closer to the season and anchor down, whether it's the left or right tackle position, and play a huge role in this offense. At Arkansas, he appeared in 10 games, including starts versus LSU and Kansas. Saw action on the offensive line and special teams as well. 47 pass plays. He allowed 2 sacks, right? So, former 4-star prospect in high school before he got into the college, things like that. I believe it was like a 3-star transfer portal rankings, but I don't necessarily buy too much stock into that. You see players all the time who are better than their stars. You see players all the time who are worse than what their stars are in their rankings, right? Tykeus Crawford, this is from Gabe Brooks. His projection with Power 4 starter, this was him coming out of high school, right? And his pro comp coming out was Morgan Moses. He says big frame, stout offensive lineman who initially looked like a guard projection, but now appears to be a legitimate tackle prospect at the Power 5 level. Possesses college-ready size, long arm, barrel-chested, and flat stomach, strong lower body, seismic improvement from sophomore to junior season, good motor, which will be huge in this offense, especially with all of the pulling and different types of zone blocking schemes that Rich Rod will throw in his offense. I think you'll see a lot of offensive line play for West Virginia this upcoming season, guys who move extremely fast. We see offensive linemen at the combine in the NFL and stuff. You're like, he's how tall? He weighs how much? And he ran a 4.8, a 4.9. You see that specific, like really on the defensive side of the ball, defensive tackles. I think like Ed Oliver, who plays for the Bills, edge rushers all the time. Excuse me. But offensive linemen too. Armand Mimbu recently, high draft pick to the Jets, ran a really good 40 time. I think you'll see a lot of fast play from the offensive line, which is something I don't think we've saw from West Virginia in recent years. Not due to anything, maybe we had guys like that. We had offensive linemen that could play fast like that, but they weren't put in a position to do that because of the scheme or offensive play calling, stuff like that. So I think now with the way that this offense will be run, he went out with a certain idea in the portal to bring in these offensive linemen who move extremely well. I think Tykeus Crawford will be one of these guys. Whether we do see him at tackle, guard, it's still a little bit too far out from week 1 to kind of have a projected depth chart. As we inch kind of closer and closer, we'll get a better feel. But I think that we will be seeing a major impact from him this upcoming season because, once again, similar to Jaylen Henderson, right? You get the name value coming from Arkansas. What does the kind of competition level look like coming from SEC caliber edge rushers to Big 12? Now, it's not as big as what everybody thinks, but it's definitely going to be some sort of difference, I would imagine. I just kind of look for him to take advantage on, dropping back here from the SEC to the Big 12 and an opportunity to come in here and start every single game for us. And I hope he takes full advantage of it and becomes the Wyatt Mullum replacement and has a really good season. Because, as I said, Gabe Brooks here from 24/7 Sports, this guy coming out of high school was a pro-style kind of tackle or guard at that level, but the way that he was moving, the footwork, technique, things of that nature, he looked, I should say, like an offensive caliber lineman. And I know you guys are probably bored out of your mind listening to me saying that an offensive tackle, an offensive lineman is going to be an impact player for us. Well, look at the NFL, right? Patrick Mahomes is the biggest impact player in the NFL at quarterback. You can't do anything without an offensive line, man. As like I keep referring to, specifically in this offense with how important this run game is, it's going to set everything up, and you have to have talented offensive linemen to run this scheme. I think Tykeus Crawford was a huge get in the portal. I'm glad he's here. I think he's going to be the replacement, whether it is left or right tackle, and I'm hoping for a huge year here from Tykeus Crawford. And now flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, first guy up here, I get to talk about my favorite player on this year's upcoming team, man. Fred Perry, who is kind of listed on projected depth charts as a nickel. and then a safety. This guy is going to be the leader of the defense, man. I'll start with that. He comes over from Jacksonville State, which he already knows the style and kind of mentality of Rich Rodriguez football, right? The deemed hard edge. And when you look at players and guys on this upcoming team who embodies that kind of mindset in their play, specifically on the field, go watch Fred Perry. This guy will be all over the field because of how good he is around the line of scrimmage and run game, right? We will kind of see him in, I think, more of like a hybrid role more than a deemed safety, okay? The way that he's able to contribute in the run game at the college level is going to be absolutely game-changing. And not only does he help out in the run game, he also helps out in the pass game too. He's a really good player in coverage. You pair that obviously with being able to come up, stop the run in certain situations. You've got yourself not only an extremely good player, but a potential draft prospect. And I think that's something I'm really hoping for West Virginia football in general. And a couple guys that I've talked on here, probably not Nicco and Henderson unless they take a major jump. But I'm hoping some of these guys are able to kind of have these huge years to where they're in these pro conversations. We get back to sending guys to the draft consistently in the top 3 rounds year after year after year after year after year. And I think the way that I view and look at Jaheim White on the offensive side of the ball for West Virginia, that's how I feel about Fred Perry on the defensive side of the ball. And Zach Alley is going to have absolutely no problem scheming him up to put him in position to make plays and be a difference maker on this defense. The past few years we saw with Jordan Leslie and any other defensive coordinator that you want to talk about for WVU football, it hasn't been pretty, man. I mean, let's just be honest. Even back to like Daniel Holgerson days, I mean, really, as far back as I can remember, man, we have historically been known as a defense that lets up a lot of points, gets thrown on a lot. I know last year it was hard to watch at times. I mean, the whole season was hard to watch. But specifically kind of getting absolutely diced in the secondary. So, not saying that Fred Perry necessarily is going to be the huge difference maker in coverage, right? We saw that he went out, 2 guys I'll talk about later, Michael Coates Jr., Derek Carter Jr., and a couple other corners. We have a completely new cornerback room. I think Fred Perry, while he will chip in and help with the coverage side of the ball, I more so view him as the safety like Karl Joseph, right? That's the perfect kind of comp that I'm going to give him for this upcoming WVU season. Karl Joseph would come down and knock guys out. That's the sort of hit power that he possessed. And it's no different with Fred Perry. This guy, man, I'm telling you right now, just go get on Twitter, get on X, go watch. It's unbelievable. The way this guy moves around the field, I had no idea what his 40-time run, but he plays way faster than whatever it is, I'd have to imagine. Extremely good tackler. I'm super excited to see him in the gold and blue and see kind of how he fares in his first season at Big 12. I don't think that this jump up in competition is going to phase him at all. If anything, I actually think he's going to benefit from it because now we're going to see the caliber of player he is and how the way he plays is, I mean, I think this guy could play at the SEC level. That's kind of how high I am on him. So Fred Perry, man, leader of this defense, will be Zach Alley's favorite player this upcoming season. I'm kind of dead set on that. I look for him to lead the entire defense overall and put us in a much better state on that side of the football than we've saw in recent years. And it starts with him, Fred Perry, great player. And another great player, and will be kind of as equal as Fred Perry in terms of impact, just at a different spot. Jimmori Robinson from UTSA, edge rusher, right? Another thing that WVU has been lacking in recent years, really ever since Dante Still, both the Stills brothers left, and a couple other guys, but we haven't had a true edge rushing threat here in a while. Specifically last season, our sack numbers were extremely low on the defensive side of the ball. We couldn't get any quarterback pressure. We couldn't do anything. So what do? We go out and get Jimmori Robinson from UTSA, who had 10.5 sacks last year. Extremely good player on film. Constant quarterback pressure. And that's simply what we need, right? We need that on the defensive side of the ball. We saw how important that is in the Super Bowl this past season on the NFL. Jaylen Carter, that kind of Philadelphia Eagles defense. You get to the quarterback, you disrupt everything. It's hard to do anything on the offensive side of the ball. So I think when you look at good teams in college football, all of them have the corners of your offense and defense kind of anchored down, right? They have good tackles. They have good edge rushers. And they really just have the whole trench work, right? Defensive line, offensive line, everything is top notch. And that kind of shows more in college football. If you have an extremely good offensive and defensive line, you will win games solely based off that. And I think in a Rich Rod kind of hard edge mentality, things like that, where we're going to be more physical than you, more conditioned than you, we're going to, move you around whenever we want, things like that. We're going to out physical teams, be more physical than teams to the point where we win games simply because of that. One of my biggest takes this upcoming season is teams like, Colorado, trying to think of another one, but specifically teams like Colorado in the Big 12 who are kind of more flashy, teams like that. When you come play West Virginia or we come play you, it's no longer, we no longer lose games like that because we're going to knock you in your mouth and we're just going to be more physical than you. And it starts with guys like Jimmori Robinson getting off the edge and getting to the quarterback. This isn't a video to necessarily sit here and kind of break down film and tell you what kind of player he is and look at this spin. He's got the complete package, right? I think this is more of kind of a highlight to show, hey, these are the guys who come week 7, 8, 9 of the season, and Jimmori Robinson sitting at 7 or 8, 9 sacks on the season. We're like, holy smokes, like, where did this guy come from? And that's going to kind of be the theme of this defense, right? Jimmori Robinson, UTSA, Fred Perry, Jacksonville State, Michael Coates, Nevada. It's a bunch of mid-major guys. And don't get me wrong, we have a couple kind of higher bounce-back guys on the defensive side of the ball. Ohio State, Reid Carrico. We have another linebacker coming in from UNC. So we have that. But I think the true difference makers on the defense this upcoming season are going to be the mid-major guys who are kind of taking the jump up in competition, but are going to prove why they dominated at that level because it's going to continue. I would look for Jimmori Robinson to hopefully have 8 or more sacks this upcoming season. And more importantly, just pressure rates, right? I'll be kind of intrigued to see PFF grades every single week of him and see percentage-wise how efficiently he's getting to the quarterback. I think that's the best way I want to put it. So we understand how important edge is in the NFL. It trickles down obviously right into college. For people who care and don't really know him, he's going to be a major factor in the run game too. He's going to set the edge, things like that. But like I said, I'm not trying to sit here and bore you with play style, things like that. Huge impact player. This was a huge get in the portal. I believe it was down to us in Virginia Tech. Was extremely happy that he picked us, and he's going to reap the benefits once again because of Zach Alley coming over from Oklahoma to be our defensive coordinator. This guy is going to have no problem setting these guys up for success. It then becomes, can they execute, and what do they do with opportunity? That's what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. And I would look for guys like Fred Perry, guys like Jimmori Robinson, to really, really take advantage of this opportunity and produce and really show why they're pro prospects for one, and why that they deserve to be playing at this high level of college football. Maybe some guys who are kind of overlooked in the recruiting world. So it's kind of the way the transfer portal is nowadays. And I think Rich Rod and Zach Alley have went out and got some dogs on this defense to clean up the mess that we've saw in previous years. Next up, man, let's talk some Reid Carrico, a 6'2", 232-pound linebacker out of Ironton, Ohio, an Ohio State transfer and kind of bounce back who played for us this past season. Former 4-star prospect, high-level guy, high-level motor, sideline to sideline linebacker with really good speed. This past season, 54 total tackles, 1 forced fumble, and a guy I think instead of, Robinson, Fred Perry, who kind of have to prove themselves at this level, Reid Carrico with a year under his belt here at WVU, and then obviously the time spent at Ohio State, I think this is the year that he kind of breaks out and puts a lot of pieces together on this defense to be a major contributor to this defensive side of the ball. Zach Alley has kind of went public a couple times in interviews during spring practices, things like that, saying his defense starts with the linebackers, and the linebackers are the most important people on his defense. Not the defensive line, not the edge rushers, not the corners, not the safeties. The direct middle of the defense the linebacking core. And we've kind of saw in this transfer portal, he went out and brought in Chase Wilson, Ben Cutter still here, couple other transfer guys. I'm kind of blanking off the top of my head, but this is a spot where it's kind of brought in some competition. But I would look for Reid Carrico to not be one of those guys to lose playing time because of these guys coming in. And I think that he puts everything together, not puts everything together in terms of skill, because I think skill is there. Size is obviously there, things like that. But statistic-wise, I think we see a big jump in his numbers, right? Obviously, from 2021 to 2023, not much playing time, things like that. Kind of his first season as a larger role this past year, and we saw glimpses of it, right? It was hard to, you had to really sit down and go back and watch things this past season to really see glimpses from players, but there's always good and the bad. And like I said, sometimes last year it was tough to watch this defense, but it's, when things are bad, I guess there's only one way to go. I kind of leave it at that. But when you have your defensive coordinator stressing how important the linebacking position is, paired with a guy with Big Ten experience, Ohio State kind of, I always say it's not about where you come from, things like that. He's here now. I would look for him to have a really big season, right? It's as simple as that. I'm not going to sit here and kind of bore you with the linebacking stuff of, he's really good at moving to this gap. He's really good at making tackles here, doing this, doing that. He's a good player, man. I think that this is the year that he takes a major jump. We are looking at him, Fred Perry, Chase Wilson, a more competitive front seven, really, when it comes to the run game. I guess that's kind of where I'm trying to go with this. We're going to see a way more competitive culture, specifically right at the start of the ball. So I think it kind of that sets the tone for this entire defense. Now look for Reid Carrico to be that hard-hitting linebacker that we've kind of been missing here in really a lot of years. And I think he has a major opportunity in front of him to kind of seize this first linebacking role, specifically on the interior of it, not outside, and really be a playmaker in the middle of this defense where all the action is. And the last two guys, man, let's talk about some difference makers in the secondary this upcoming season. Similar to where I talked about the quarterbacks, kind of throw them into one and talk about both. Let's start with Micheal Coach Jr., a 5'10", 180-pound cornerback coming over from Nevada, a guy who started his college football career in JUCO and then to Nevada, and now we are here. This is going to be kind of the tone setter in the secondary part of this defense. Some would deem him, including myself, as kind of cornerback one rolling into this upcoming season, right? Now, this is the part of the defense where in recent years it has been abysmal. And sometimes I don't even really think it was the players' fault. How many times last year were we watching Mountaineer games and there would be a busted coverage, a busted play? Teams would have an easy 60-yard touchdown, and maybe it is due to players not knowing where they're supposed to be. Just defensive scheme wasn't good. I mean, our defensive coordinator did get fired in the middle of the season, so people quick to forget about that. So we bring in, right, this was one of the earlier transfer guys too, a guy from Nevada who started all 13 games while he was there, led the team 17 pass deflections, 13 breakups, 4 interceptions, ranked second nationally in those categories, 41 total tackles, so can help in the run game, and all Mountain West first team honors. So that's kind of huge when you look at mid-major guys making this jump up. A first team in Mountain West coming over, it's kind of big for West Virginia. And I said this in an earlier video with WVU football. He is more of the technical kind of corner, right? The guy that's going to be step for step with these wide receiver ones in the Big 12, and he kind of gets his job done that way. Like NFL comp, right? I look at him as more of like a Pat Surtain type of corner instead of Sauce Gardner for the Jets. Sauce Gardner makes a lot of his plays, it looks like, kind of based off athleticism, if that makes sense. I think Micheal Coach, who is athletic, that's not where I'm not saying that he's not athletic. I just think he's a more technical corner, and he gets his work done, and he's successful on the field because of the way he's able to go step for step, the way he is in zone coverage, great hands in my opinion, obviously because of the 4 interceptions. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit with you and act like I watched a ton of Nevada games this past season. But the minimal amount of stuff that I've saw him in coverage snaps that I've been able to watch, I think that for what we've saw in the secondary in past seasons, he is going to be not even serviceable, right? That's what we needed going into the season on the secondary, is just guys who were serviceable. He's going to be above that, and be an above average corner to start from day one, I think. And we know in the Big 12 how pass happy it is. I can't remember, my good friend Noah, he threw out a crazy stat of Big 12, something along the lines of how many more pass plays there are in the Big 12 compared to SEC, ACC, things like that. And it was like 100 plus more. So it shows how valuable these secondary, both corner and safety positions are with teams dropping back in coverage. So I look for Micheal Coates to kind of be our cornerback one and be the steady guy that no matter what we can rely on. But it's on the other side, it kind of makes Micheal Coates' life a little bit easier when you have a guy like Derek Carter also coming in to play the cornerback position. Derek Carter Jr., like Fred Perry, also coming over from Jacksonville State. So the mentality, physicality, the way that Rich Rod wants the defense played is not going to be a problem. He's already got that covered. You know, we've kind of heard Rich Rod was asked questions, kind of players not under the Jacksonville State system and have yet to play for him, kind of flock towards these guys early on in practice just to kind of get a feel of, hey, what is Rich Rod like? Does he hate when I do this? Things like that. So once again, could be another huge leader on this defense. And, you know, this is a guy, Derek Carter Jr., 2021, his freshman season, didn't play. Redshirt freshman season, appeared in 10 games, 3 starts, finished season 14 tackles. 2023 is sophomore season as a redshirt. Second team All-Conference USA at the cornerback position. Led the team and tied for number 3 in Conference USA in pass breakups with 8. And played all 13 games, total 44 tackles, including 2 tackles for loss. And that, to me, right, from 2022 being 3 starts at corner in 10 games to second team All-Conference as a full-time starter, and now this past season as a junior, 31 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 1 breakup. We kind of saw the jump from his freshman season to sophomore, and I don't want to say he kind of plateaued in his junior year, but I think there's more in the tank for this guy. I'm kind of hoping that here this upcoming season, if he takes that major jump and we see him kind of, I don't say develop. These guys are still young, so I kind of always look at things through the NFL realm of things. But if he can kind of reach his full potential, right, this is another guy who could be a huge difference maker for us. And if we, similar enough, this is kind of the glaring theme for West Virginia football this year. If you can unlock the potential in the wide receiver room, unlock the potential with the guys that you've brought in through the portal, specifically at the cornerback position, and linebacker, I guess I should say, because we brought in a ton of guys there, you're going to have a good team. That's going to be the big challenge of this. And there's new faces everywhere. But cornerback, wide receiver, if that's not good, if those places aren't good, you're going to get exposed really quickly because you're not going to be able to throw the ball effectively, and you're not going to be able to get off the field, right? I mean, we saw that all last year. If you're getting thrown on all the time, and our run defense wasn't that good either, but it just makes life easier if you can have lockdown corners on both sides of the ball. And I'm hoping that Micheal Coates and Derek Carter can kind of be that dynamic duo. And then we'll see Fred Perry come down and play the nickel. Or if he drops back to safety or move him wherever Zach Alley wants, we're going to see guys like Devontae Golden Nelson from Akron. A couple more of these guys that are brought in through the portal. And we're going to have, similar enough to the front seven, on the run aspect on the defensive side of the ball, we're going to see a much more competitive secondary. And I think more importantly, we need that more than the run game. But if it all meshes together, you're going to have one hell of a defense and a very happy defensive coordinator in Zach Alley, if that's the case. So that's kind of it, man. Kind of 10 guys that I really like this upcoming season to have a really big year. Some I kind of went more in depth on. Others simply due to the fact that, I'm not going to sit here and kind of fluff you. I don't know, man. I've got to kind of see a little bit of these guys, but I haven't got to see the full deal. So this upcoming season, obviously week to week when we're giving takes, talking about the games, recaps, things like that, we'll kind of be able to get a better feel of where these guys are at. But preseason, probably do something similar to this closer to kickoff. These are the guys I've highlighted to be true difference makers. It'll be kind of be interesting to look back on this later on and kind of see where I was right, where I was wrong, things like that. So, guys, as always, please like, comment, subscribe. Specifically hit that subscribe button, man. Trying to get this thing rolling, growing by football season. And we will see you in the next one.